If you think school is just for studying, then, in the world of Kakegurui, you'll have your eyes opened. In this place, rank, power, and fame are all determined through gambling. In a place where people gamble, only aiming to win or lose, Jabami Yumeko appeared. For her, gambling is simply about enjoyment. Please note that illegal gambling in real life is prohibited. Absolutely do not follow this. If you like mind-bending battles and intense plot twists, then come here. We will guide you to explore or, in a more Vietnamese name, the Gambling Academy, at the famous Hyakkaou Private Academy, where money is everything and gambling is power. A gambling match is taking place between Suzui and with Sayotom's victory, Satuzi, unable to pay, is turned into a house pet. The distinguishing mark of a house pet at this academy is a special collar, worn around the neck. Males are called Pochi, and females are called Miki. One might have thought Suzui's life would forever be Sayotom's house pet. But no, Jabami appeared and changed everything. Jabami is a transfer student. Since her arrival, she has attracted many gazes with her beautiful and captivating appearance. As a new student, a school tour is essential. Therefore, the teacher chose Suzui, the class representative, to guide Jabami. After a tour, the facilities here made Jabami very excited. But what excited her even more was the gambling tradition here. After every class, countless gambling dens would spring up all over the academy, of various sizes, and inevitably, soon after, Jabami had her first gamble with Their game was called rock, paper, scissors card draw. With extremely simple rules, surrounding students would write down any rock, paper, or scissors symbol, and drop them into a box. The two players would then draw 3 cards from it to compete. If the symbols were the same, they would continue playing until all cards were used. If all cards were used and they were still the same, it was a draw, and the round ended. The winning conditions were the same as regular rock, paper. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and paper beats rock. The only difference was that this game added a bit of luck. When making decisions based on the drawn card, and predicting the opponent's card, in the first round, Jabami bet do a thing. She won. In the second round, the bet increased to 50 zeng, Sayot. The third round was another to zeng, with Jabami winning. By the fourth round, the bet was raised to 50 zeng, and Saotom won again. Winning millions of yen made Saotom even more smug. She continued to provoke her opponent, but Jabami calmly took out 2 zeng for the fifth round. Saotom still won. Just when her opponent was at her most smug, Jabami still invited her to play another round. From her backpack, she poured out stacks of money worth 10 million yen. This was the bet for the next round. This stunned Saotom, because no one would be crazy enough to throw that much money into this game, but Saotom didn't know that. Crazy was another nickname for Jabami. Her eyes were burning red, shining with the madness of a true gambler. Saotom hesitated, about to leave, when Jabami asked, "Are you scared?" Perhaps she was overconfident, knowing that 21 out of 30 people here were on her side. So Saotom agreed to continue playing. Her people, following orders, would draw many rocks and papers, so the chance of drawing scissors from that box was very low. Her opponent would likely only pick rock and paper. To ensure she wouldn't lose, Saotom just needed to play paper and draw a card. Having 2 papers and 1 rock made Saotom extremely excited. She was sure she would win no matter what. Just then, Jabami began to expose her opponent's scheme. She said that Saotomi ordered her faction to draw only rocks and papers, for extremely large bets, to ensure Saotom would win as much money as possible. Seeing her plan exposed, Saotom seemed a bit worried. In contrast, Jabami confidently continued playing. As a result, Saotom played paper, while Jabami played scissors and claimed the final victory. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Saotom was stunned, from someone who controlled others. Now, Saotom had become a debtor, having to pay Jabami 8 million. The remaining 8 ended the match. Suzuki ran after Jabami, asking how she knew about Saotom's scheme. Jabami simply replied that she knew from the start that Saotom had bought cards, but didn't know what those people would draw. So she checked through a few rounds. The result was that the students on Saotom's side all drew cards according to the instructions of the person behind her. Suzui asked how she knew what signals he was giving. Jabami just needed to use a mirror. Suzui still wondered why the chance of drawing scissors was still very low in the final round. Why did Jabami manage to pick it? Well, it was probably just luck, Jabami replied, leaving Suzui speechless. Because Jabami was happy today. So she gave money to Suzui so he could pay off his debt to Suzui and escape the house pet status. From that day on, with Jabami's money, Suzui was able to return to being a proper human. Their relationship also gradually grew closer. As for ever since she became a house pet due to her debt to Jabami, the attitude of those around her did a complete 100. This is understandable due to the rules at this academy, which can be considered a small, class-divided society of house pets. Clearly, social classes are distinguished by gambling ability. The better you are at gambling, the richer you become. The richer you are, the higher your status, because the school has many powerful and wealthy students who will become leaders in the future. Therefore, skills like negotiation, reading opponents, and so on are extremely essential, and these skills can all be honed through intense gambling matches. Therefore here, those with good gambling skills will be famous, and vice versa. These gambling activities are managed by the student council. There is a ranking system at the school. If anyone is in the lower ranks, they are considered to have no investment ability, or are called a house pet. Of course, to be promoted in rank, you can pay the student council. The problem of class discrimination in the academy has been increasing since the current student council president, Kirati, took power 2 years ago. She used gambling to defeat the previous president, to claim the top position. The student council often uses types of gambling that are very brutal. Everything that the master has said only made Jabami more interested. With this school, before the first match was even over, the second one began. This time, the opponent is the daughter of a major toy company owner in Japan, with abundant financial resources. Sumeragi is currently a member of the student council. Even though she's only a first year, she poured money into the council. This game is called memory. It's double the difficulty of other regular memory games. Normally you just need to remember 2 cards with the same number, but in this game, you also have to remember their suits. The bet is 20 san, with each san worth 1 million yen. Unfortunately, in such a short time, Jabami couldn't prepare in time. Seeing this, Sumeragi generously lent her the money because 20 million yen is just pocket change to her. Not only that, through this game, she also wanted to promote her company's products, which are the new deck of cards used in this game. The game begins. The two continuously flipped cards and memorized them. As a result, Sumeragi won. Jabami said she couldn't pay the 20 million yen and begged her junior for another match. Of course, Sumeragi agreed, on the condition of Jabami's fingernails, because she's a true nail addict. And she has a collection of human fingernails. The result of the losing gamblers? Sumeragi was very confident because she knew half the cards on the table, because there was a small thermal mark on them that would appear when exceeding a certain temperature. That explains why Sumeragi always kept the decks warm in her bag. So when it was time to play, she only needed to remember the cards with those marks within 2 to 3 minutes, before the thermal marks disappeared, not to let Sumeragi gloat. This time, Jabami won in just 1 turn. Much to her opponent's astonishment. After flipping, Jabami advised her junior to think carefully before betting her family's business. Indeed, once Sumeragi's trick was exposed, it would affect her reputation and her family's business. The reason Jabami could flip them all correctly in 1 turn was because the markings on this deck were identical to the previous one. She just needed to flip the unmarked cards and compare them with the marked cards. Even knowing the trick, the markings only appeared for 2 to 3 minutes. Jabami simultaneously remembering everything from the previous game and comparing it to this game was still something unimaginable to achieve victory. Jabami frantically invited Sumeragi to play a few more rounds, with her junior's fingernails as the prize. Faced with Jabami's frenzy, Sumeragi appeared extremely weak. She sat in a corner, sobbing in fear. This news was then spread to the student council, making all members interested in her, this new transfer student. After school, Jabami dragged Suzuki to the Folk Culture Research Club. Here, they witnessed a gambling match between Saotome and Eureka, the club president. As a result, Saotome lost with a debt of nearly 50 million yen. The painful defeat made Saotome bury her head in her hands and think that she shouldn't have participated in this game, just because she was eager to return to her former status. In this academy, there are matches where only house pets are allowed to play. They can challenge anyone to a gamble, without fear of refusal, as long as the bet is within the opponent's payment limit. However, if the opponent is a student, there will be no limit because they have a lot of money. They will bet as much as they want to challenge. Therefore, to quickly change their lives, occasionally, some house pets choose this method. After Saotome left, Yuriko invited Jabami to participate in a special game at her club called Life or Death. The outcome of the game depends on 10 swords and where they land when shaken by the dealer. There are 30 holes on the table. Players place their chips on the positions they predict. The swords will land. However, it doesn't stop there. What truly makes this game so appealing and gives it its name is that if a sword lands hilt down in a slot, that slot is life, and the bet placed there will be multiplied by 30. Conversely, if the hilt points upwards, that slot is death, and the bet placed there must be paid 30 times over. When the dealer starts shaking the cup, the 2 players will have 10 seconds to place their bets. Jabami chose a bet of 40 million yen. For the first round, a 10 million yen bet was placed, and the swords were shaken. Both began to place their bets. The cup was opened, 17 life and 30 death results. The result was a draw. The chips remained unchanged. Before the second round, Jabami frankly said, Yuriko was despicable in her match against Sayo. She clearly knew. Sotome challenged her to regain her former glory, but she deliberately created hope, only to brutally crush it. Through this rigged game, Jabami not only mocked Yuriko, calling her nothing but trash, but also made a pun with her name, implying she was a fool. Hearing these words, Yuriko began to laugh loudly. She took a deep breath to regain her composure, then reminded Jabami to continue the game. This time, Jabami bet all 40 million yen on one square, while Yuriko split her bets among other squares. Jabami then exposed Yuriko's cheating trick. On the dealer's right hand, as well as other club members, all had two things, like moles. But in reality, they could be two metal rods, used to hold a sword in this game. The process is as follows. After rolling the sword, depending on the square Yuriko bet on, the dealer would skillfully move the sword into the desired square to ensure Yuriko would win. However, this method doesn't guarantee 100% accuracy, because there's a chance the target square could be blocked by other swords. But it's okay. That's enough, as long as the square where the opponent bets heavily doesn't land on life, and she herself doesn't bet too much on any one square, to avoid death. That's fine. As a member of the student council, Yuriko certainly isn't short on money, so she doesn't need to win every game. She just needs to ensure she doesn't lose too much. And of course, with that cheating trick, from at least thousands of challenges, Yuriko must have made a fortune. Usually, opponents would bet losing 10 to 20 million yen wouldn't faze Yuriko at all. But this time Jabami went all-in on one square, elevating the game to truly live up to its life or death name. If she loses, Jabami will lose 40 million yen, but if she wins, that amount could reach 2.16 billion yen. A sum that would make Yuriko rack her brain to figure out how to pay. A true life or death game that sent Yuriko into a panic. She decided to negotiate with Jabami, but just then, the student council arrived and forced the game to be revealed. As a result, Jabami lost and Yuriko won 310 million yen. The match ended. Jabami said that this rigged game has existed since ancient times. The only difference is that this game is more elaborate, because somewhere on the ceiling, magnets with extremely strong magnetic force were installed to move the sword that was stuck in square 24, the square Jabami chose, to another spot without being detected. Only a madman like the president would dare to design an entire building just to serve this game. That made Jabami extremely excited and wanted to challenge her. With her debt, Jabami became a house pet. This was exactly what she wanted, to be able to challenge anyone, especially those in the student council. In the student council meeting room, Sahotum had a meeting with Yomozuki, a cunning-looking member of the council, to ask about the life plan she had just received. It stated that Sahotum had to marry a stranger, and that was unacceptable. But Yomozuki said that after everything that had happened, and Sahotum's death, she had no right to choose, just like Jabami. Jabami also received a similar book, which made her extremely excited. If she couldn't pay back the 310 million, Jabami's life would be entirely decided by the student council. Suddenly a classmate from the next class, Kiwatari, appeared. He called her to a secluded corner and told Jabami to undress. Of course, she disagreed because these guys weren't her type. Enraged, Kiwatari lunged and choked Jabami. Seeing this, her companion tried to intervene but was stopped. Just then, a student council member, Midari, appeared. She pointed a gun at Kiwatari and invited him to play a game of chance. Not understanding what she was saying, Kiwatari and his friends left. Back in class, Jabami received a flyer introducing a program to help underprivileged students. Under the patronage of the student council secretary, the academy would hold an annual meeting for students with the most debt. Here, they would have the chance to transfer their debts to others. A match involves 4 participants. The top-ranked person's debt will be paid by the student council, and the top-ranked person's debt will be transferred to the last-ranked person. The debt will shift according to the ranking in the game. Seeing Jabami's 310 million debt, Saotom told herself she didn't want to be in the same group at all. Man proposes, God disposes. Both were assigned to a group, with Kiwatari and another shy short-haired girl. They played Indian 2-card poker together. The rules were very simple. Players will use 40 cards, excluding face cards and jokers. The dealer deals 2 cards to each person. 1 card the player can see, while the other must be placed on their forehead for others to see. The result will be calculated based on the outcome of those 2 cards. The order of priority is as follows: 2 cards forming a pair, 2 cards of the same suit, and the worst is 2 unrelated cards. This is called pick. the most interesting part of the game. Each person will have 10 different colored chips. The value of each chip will correspond to 1/10 of the debt, they declared. The game has 10 rounds. The maximum number of chips that can be bet in one round is 5. Also, cheating is not allowed here. Before joining the game, Saotom and Jabami went out to talk for a bit, then came back. Jabami and Saotom's table owed the most, so the secretary was the host. In the first round, Saotom folded, and Kiwatari won. In the second round, everyone folded, and Kiwatari won again. In the third round, Jabami and Kiwatari drew. In the fourth round, it was Saotom's turn to be the dealer. She started to recall her life plan. When she had to marry a politician, then give birth to 3 talented children. In old age, she would be cared for by her husband and grandchildren. In short, it was a happy life plan, but her life was her own. Saotom didn't want to follow anyone's arrangements. So she started betting big, but everyone folded. Kiwatari thought Saotom's hand was strong, and that she had colluded with Jabami, so he didn't follow. As a result, Saotom held the pick, and won, astonishing him. Kiwatari was furious. He was about to act like a thug when the secretary immediately reminded him, forcing him to sit down. Continuing to round 5, Kiwatari fell into Jabami's trap, and Jabami won. In round 6, Kiwatari was scared, so Saotom, holding the pick, still won. By this point, Jabami and began to expose Kiwatari's cheating, and the remaining timid friend? This friend was forced to cheat by reading the card on Kiwatari's forehead, and then signaling to him. Seeing his trick exposed, Kiwatari started to worry, but then calmed down. Before the match began, Jabami and Saotom already knew the other two would cheat, so they shook hands and cooperated. The K&G Bitsy for Jian, but Jabami stated that she wouldn't expose the other two, so the match could continue. By round 7, Kiwatari lost patience and cursed at his teammates. Jabami and Saotom read his hand and decided to fold. In round 8, Saotom won, and Kiwatari gradually sank into despair. By round 9, Kiwatari lost his composure because of the virtual debt he was about to actually incur, so he kept yelling at that girl to follow someone else's bet. The result? Kiwatari won this round and smugly thought he had won, forgetting that in gambling, the final outcome is what matters. The 10th round would decide who would cry and who would laugh. That girl signaled to Kibayashi that she had a pair of 9s, making him overjoyed, as he was sure he wouldn't lose. But after calculating and seeing Jabami and Saotom's huge bets, which made that girl's potential winnings rise to first place, he forced her to fold. Initially, she was scared, but thanks to Jabami's encouragement and manipulation, plus the horrifying memory of when Kiwatari dared to cut her beloved long hair earlier, that girl bravely stood up and followed the bet. According to Kiwatari's calculations, even if that girl won, he would only owe 10 million. So it wasn't too concerning. But the result announced by the secretary afterward truly shocked him, because the winner was set. Second was that girl. Third was Jabami, and last was Kiwatari. This result was different from Kiwatari's expectations, making him furious. Meanwhile, Saotom and Jabami laughed happily, because the debt in the match was self-declared by each student. So from the beginning, Saotom had declared she owed 310 million, while she actually only owed 50 million. As for Jabami, she owed 310 million, but only declared 50 million. The two exchanged their debt figures to deceive their opponent. This method was also used by Kiwatari before, so it's not surprising. However, defrauding the student council of 310 million? Only Saotom would have the guts to do something like this. With the victory, the 310 million will be given to subtracting her 50 million debt, only 260 million remains. As for Kiwatari, who originally had no debt, and joined to earn a little, she ended up with a debt of 310 million, transferred from When Kiwatari heard Saotom's taunts, she was so ashamed and angry that she tried to punch her, but was tasered by the secretary and collapsed on the spot. From then on, the relationship between Jabami and Saotom became closer. After Saotom successfully cleared her debt, the attitude of others completely changed 180 degrees, showing more friendliness towards her, even though they had always been disdainful before. But Saotom didn't pay much attention to them. What she currently resents is the student council and the rules regarding house pets. Now Saotom also realized that Jabami seems to be aiming for an official match with the student council as a house pet, because calculating the money Jabami earned from card games was already enough to pay off her debt, but she deliberately didn't pay. This conversation between Saotom and Chizui was accidentally overheard by the secretary, so she returned to the student council meeting room to report. According to her investigation, Jabami has a considerable amount of assets. She currently lives alone. Her parents left a long time ago. Her family only consists of an older sister who is undergoing treatment, especially in the hospital. This sister's hospital fees are entirely paid by Jabami. Hearing that Yomoduki guessed the reason Jabami refused to pay the debt was because she was looking forward to a match with the student council president. Hearing that, Midori started to go crazy, ran off, and yelled, "She's mine." At the same time, Saotome was invited for tea by the president. Upon arriving, she said, Saotome was the first person to take from the student council, up to hundreds of millions, so she was particularly amused, and wanted to invite Saotome to join the student council. The invitation surprised Saotome greatly, so she had to ask again to be sure, because she thought that to join the student council, one needed a special talent. Of course, earning 310 million from the student council already showed Saotome's talent. That's why she was invited. Seeing Saotome about to refuse, the president lifted her chin, making her face her eyes directly. Then she asked why Saotome was refusing. Before the president's invitation, Saotome asked her about the pet system. Why such a cruel system was created. Answering Saotome's question, the president calmly replied that she currently kept a fish tank, in which she gathered the weak ones. Through the process of raising them, the president noticed that sometimes the weakest ones gained the strength to eat the stronger ones. So she wanted to try applying it to humans to see what would happen. After that, she asked Saotome if she didn't like the pet system. Saotome didn't answer and left. Returning essay, Tome was angry that the president didn't even consider pets as humans. That made her hate her even more. Class ended. Jabami called Shizui to participate in the official match. On their way, they met Midori. She took her and Shizui to a secret basement to play a gambling game. Hearing that, Jabami immediately agreed. This place was an underground prison. There was a separate observation room from the game room. The two rooms were completely soundproof. They could only see each other through screens and cameras. They called this the ESP game room. Players only needed to guess the cards dealt by the dealer in the other room. First, the dealer would place the cards on the table as they wished. The two players could see 5 face-down cards through the screen. After the dealer finished placing them, the two players would place their cards on their corresponding slots. Whoever had more cards matching the dealer's would win. Each matching pair of cards earned 1 point. Here, there were no tokens or money wagered. Instead, the person with more points would get to shoot that many shots. For example, if A got 3 points and B got 2 points, A would get to shoot B once. Both would load their guns with their desired amount of bullets, a maximum of 6 rounds, into a sealed box. The winner would randomly choose one of the 2 guns. Before playing, Jabami had a few conditions. They would only play 3 rounds. Suzu would be the dealer, and the loser would have to pay 1 billion yen. Midori, of course, agreed, because she didn't care much about money. What she sought was the feeling of life and death hanging in the balance. However, to be fair, Midori also added a rule. If one person missed their shot, the other person would get to shoot back. With the conditions set, both began the game. Shizui was still racking his brain, not knowing what the sign Jabami had given him earlier meant, staring at the card and thinking about how Jabami saved her. Finally, Suzu also started arranging the cards and gave a random signal, because there was no signal between them in the first place. Giving a signal was just a show from a... because if she wasn't sure she would win, she wouldn't load any bullets into the gun. Jabami's survival rate would also be higher. But both seemed to have guessed wrong, because Midori was nothing short of a madwoman. She loaded all 6 bullets, even though she had no idea what that signal was. The game began. Round 1, Midori guessed 3 cards correctly. Jabami guessed 2 cards correctly. Midori won. She took a gun and was about to pull the trigger, when Jabami advised her not to pull the trigger, because that gun belonged to Jabami, and there was only 1 bullet in it, so the chance of hitting was low. Midori found it uninteresting, so she forfeited her turn to continue to round 2. Jabami wondered why Midori sought her out to gamble. Of course, the answer was, I do it because I like it. Midori felt that no matter how much money there was, it wasn't interesting. What she needed were violent things. Things that brought more excitement, like life or death situations. For example, Midori also shared that her left eye was completely blind due to the student council president. Because Midori owed a lot of money in the past, the student council president came to visit her. Since she couldn't pay the debt, the student council president wanted to use that money to buy her left eye, for the reason that she was curious about the back of that eye. Realizing that the student council president was truly insane, blinded her own left eye with a pen, even though blood was gushing. At that moment, she realized that pain itself was true gambling. After that, she was admitted to the student council at the student council president's invitation. However, just relying on that was too boring, so at first, Midori disagreed, but the president said that, if she joined the student council, there would come a day when she would kill her. Hearing that, Midori's vengeful spirit rose, and she agreed to join, waiting for the day she would be killed. Round 2 began. Suzui, after some analysis, decided to reuse Jabami's card placement order. The result? Jabami won, so she aimed the gun at Midori. but no bullets were fired. This was because the gun had no bullets. It was her gun. She knew this because a loaded gun is heavier than an unloaded one. Round 3 began. Madara's subordinate received a call, then started projecting the screen larger. Seeing this, Suzui yelled, "This is cheating," so he didn't want to continue. Very quickly after that, Madari said over the phone that if Suzui didn't comply, she would shoot Jabami immediately, so he had to quickly arrange the cards. At the same time, Jabami loaded 2 bullets and raised the gun in front of Madari, saying that this was punishment for forcing the cheating just now. In response to Jabami, Madari also loaded 2 similar bullets into her gun. As Suzui began to flip the cards, Jabami continued. Originally Suzui was right-handed, but today, on the screen, he was flipping cards with his left hand, and the markings on the cards were reversed. Therefore, it could be deduced that the results displayed on the screen from the beginning were completely reversed. In round 3, Suzui used his right hand again, meaning there's no reversal in this round. However, in round 2, Suzu was able to arrange them in the same order as Jabami's cards in round 1, because he also saw a similar inverted image. Like this side, he saw the positions of Jabami and Madara, even though they had been swapped. The trick being, exposed stunned Madara. She revealed her cards, losing everything. Jabami continued her analysis. In the first round, Madari didn't pull the trigger due to caution, fearing that if the gun had a bullet, she might accidentally shoot and kill Jabami, then no one would finish her off. From the very beginning, Madari wanted to lose, because for her, winning meant being killed. The clearest sign was that no one wanted to win, yet they left the card with the wave symbol so obviously exposed. Jabami didn't let Madari fulfill her wish. Her cards, when revealed, also resulted in a tie. Because it was a draw, no bullets were fired. Jabami said that humans who only want to die, like Madari, are what she hates the most. At the end, Jabami politely left. Midari begged her to shoot her, even just once. But of course, Jabami's answer was no. Outside, she invited Suzu to an all-you-can-eat dessert buffet. The one who pays would be decided by a coin toss. Before revealing the result, Jabami asked Suzu why he could remain so calm. It turned out the reason was simple. Suzu trusted that Jabami would understand his intentions. Hearing these words, Jabami was very happy. She began to reveal the coin toss result. The result, Suzu won, and he got it covered, just as Jabami wished. The president suddenly left because of that. She left everything else to the vice president and secretary. A week passed since that day. The student council's internal unity was broken. Some wanted power, others wanted to protect themselves, and others pursued pleasure, and some people don't know what they're thinking. The student council has always maintained its power and unity, thanks to the president. But now, with Jabami's appearance, this system is starting to crumble. Manyuta seems eager to seize power. So she wants to punish Yuriko and Madara for disgracing the student council. Seeing that arrogance, Madara told Manyuta to try gambling against Jabami and see. Yuriko also agreed. While everyone was arguing about how to deal with Jabami, the idol stood up, accepted the task and asked Manyuta for help. Meanwhile, a meeting was taking place between people who used to be rivals. A junior brought a cake for Jabami, then sat down and poured out her heart. Her father is a pragmatic person, so he wanted her to join the student council, to build connections with the upper class, but now she's been kicked out of the student council, so she might lose her inheritance. She heard Jabami was going to gamble against the president, so she came to ask for a slot in the council. In return, she would fully support Jabami. The next day, Jabami informed Suzu that the idol wanted to play cards with her. This made Suzu very worried. When she learned that the student council was targeting her friend, the two of them went to meet the idol as invited. Outwardly, she was a pure and gentle schoolgirl. But hidden beneath that was a condescending person. She acted friendly with her fans in public, but in her private room, she immediately showed disgust. Rinsing her mouth and washing her hands frantically, the idol wanted Jabami to gamble on stage, where she performs. The bet is 50 million. An amount enough for Jabami to pay off her remaining debt to the student council. If Jabami loses, she will become an idol alongside the idol. She will change Jabami's life plan. Hearing the idol say that everything she does is for her fans, Jabami immediately retorted, telling her to take off her mask, because didn't she hate her fans? The proof was the fan letter sent to the idol, that she had torn up. At this moment, the idol stopped acting, and began to reveal her true nature. Jabami said that betting only her life for this game was a bit boring. Saying so, she took out a voice recorder. It contained a recording, with the idol's voice cursing her fans. Once it's released, her life will be ruined. Jabami wanted to bet this recording as well. Regarding the recording, it was originally slipped in with the letter that was torn and then taped back together. It wasn't something Jabami came up with herself. Therefore, she thought someone else was also plotting to overthrow the idol. On the day of the match, after the performance, came the gambling match between Jabami and the idol. The two would take turns playing games. Each win would earn a mark on a 3x3 board. Just getting 3 consecutive marks vertically, horizontally, or diagonally would win. This game is quite similar to regular tick. The first game was a singing competition. Each person would roll 2 dice. The number on the black die represents the tens digit, and the white die represents the units digit. The hall has a total of 100 spectators in seats 0 to 99. Whichever person the dice land on, that person will be chosen to judge the performance. Singing on their phones, the idol sang first and scored 85 points. It's Jabami's turn. She sang with her clear voice and scored 98 points. Jabami won the first round, choosing the center position. And so, the fifth round of the game began with Old Maid. In this game, the idol let Jabami win, because she marked the cards. If you give it to me, Jabami wins this round. After a short break, Jabami changed back into her traditional uniform, and started rolling the dice. To decide the game in round 6 was called Fan Appreciation. An audience member would be chosen, and the players had to guess that person's birth month. Whoever guessed closer would win. This game excited the idol, because she was confident she remembered all the birth months in her fan club, and was assured that only fan club members and students were attending this event. But as Jabami rolled the dice, the person chosen to be guessed was someone not in the idol's fan club, which made her nervous. It was then that the idol remembered. Jabami also had the ability to manipulate dice rolls to her liking. Looking at Jabami's handwriting, the idol guessed she wrote June. But the idol was thinking Jabami couldn't be so foolish as to reveal it like that. There must be a trick. So the idol immediately wrote 9, the number she thought Jabami actually wrote. The result was one person wrote 6, one person wrote 9. While Sayotom was born in March, Jabami's guess was the closest. So Jabami won the overall result. LS do Jabami vit SP6, because she didn't know Sayotom's birth month either. She wrote the number 6, to ensure the idol wouldn't write the same number as her. The idol lost. Jabami demanded money. The idol's assistant brought out a briefcase full of money, and begged Jabami not to release the recording. She could have as much as she wanted, but the idol didn't think so. She agreed to let Jabami play the recording, believing that if she couldn't overcome this, she would never achieve her dream. The video was then played. The idol admitted it was her true nature, and thanked everyone for their support. Contrary to what was thought when the video was released, that people would turn their backs, they actually continued to blindly support her. Jabami came onto the stage and said that the culprit behind the recording, and the torn letter received earlier needed to be found. Hearing this, the idol began to question Mayuta, who was targeted. He had no choice but to go on stage, promising on his honor, as the next student council president, that he didn't do it. His words attracted everyone's attention. Jabami took the opportunity to invite him to a card game, but he refused. Seeing this, Jabami used her pet privilege to challenge him to a public match. Jabami's challenge made Mayuta completely change his view of her, as well as his calculations, but in the end, he still agreed. The dealer was the vice president. The chosen game was a common card game. The game's name was Choi Poker. Each player would receive 5 cards and 1 chance to change their hand. This game would have no folding or calling bets. Players could only bet or raise. The last person to bet would get to choose stronger or weaker. If you choose stronger, the person with the stronger hand wins. If you choose weaker, the player with the weaker hand wins. In case both players have nothing, we will consider the suit. For example, King of Spades is stronger than 10 of Hearts. Listen to this rule. Sadami and Sumedaji started to worry about Jabami, because in a normal poker game, the more you raise, the higher your chances of winning. Even with a bad hand, you just need to keep raising, putting pressure on your opponent. But in this game, the person who holds the right to choose has the greatest advantage. Furthermore, this game is only for those with a lot of money. 1 chip here is worth 10 million. Jabami said she just won 310 million, so she took 31 chips. As for Manuda, he took 100 chips, equivalent to 1 billion. In the first round, each person will place 1 chip as an entry fee. Jabami started by exchanging 2 cards. Manuda exchanged 1 card to see what Jabami would bet. Manuda used 10 chips to bait her first. Seeing this, Jabami immediately raised another 10 chips. Jabami made the final bet, so she got the right to choose. She chose stronger. As a result, neither of them had anything. But Jabami's hand had a higher card, an ace, so she won. In round 2, continued to immerse himself in Jabami's thoughts, to figure out how she plays, and smirked, thinking that he had the upper hand in this game. Jobami proceeded to exchange a pair of tens, surprising everyone. It was Manyuta's turn. He confidently stood pat, placing all 5 cards on the table. Noticing the provocation from her opponent, Jobami didn't hesitate to raise the bet by 41 chips. Manyuta chose to raise 1 more chip to gain the right to choose. And chose stronger, because it was highly likely that Jobami discarded the pair of tens to aim for weaker. As a result, Jobami lost all her chips. Meanwhile, Manyuta began to gloat about his victory. After that, Jobami called Sumeragi to borrow more money to continue playing. On stage, Sumeragi had 2 options to choose from. One was not to lend Jobami money, in which case Manyuta would let her join the student council. After that, she would have the right to inherit assets. But he openly disdained her talent. At the same time, he only saw her as a stepping stone, gentle when needed, but ready to discard her when she lost her value. The other option was to lend Jobami money. If Jobami won, Sumeragi would have everything. But if Jobami lost, Sumeragi would lose everything. Standing between 2 crucial choices, Sumeragi decided to give Jobami 100 chips. Meanwhile, the president had a meeting with the heads of the families. She said that she was truly unlucky to share a family with such conservative, selfish, and malicious people. Indeed, these words provoked them. The president added, if anyone had any input, they should meet her in person, not through a device, like the current one. After Sumeragi's financial aid, the match continued. Both Jobami and Manyuta exchanged 2 cards. Jobami confidently bet 20 chips. Manyuta followed the bet and won another 20 chips. Jobami continued to raise by another 20 chips. Manyuta raised by another 10 chips. The current bet amount is 71 chips. Jobami decided to go all-in with her remaining 29 chips. Starting to feel amused by Jobami, Manyuta grandly raised by another 30 chips to gain the right to choose. But Sumeragi intervened. She demanded to raise the bet by another 10 chips for Jobami. Indeed, Manyuta continued to raise by another 10 chips. The stakes on the table kept rising, which excited Jobami. Another 10 shovels, then another 10 shovels. Sumeragi was about to reach her financial limit, knowing that Manyuta calmly raised the bet by 100 zio, leaving her stunned. Jobami said that back when she was a student, she used her life plan to pay off debts. Therefore, Sumeragi could bet her life. Faced with Jobami's insane manipulation, although initially scared, Sumeragi later decided to bet her entire life. Manyuta said he disagreed. Because the so-called life plan was too intangible. It could only be used to pay off debts, and did not represent human value. In short, the decision rested with the house. As a result, she agreed to Sumeragi's life. The house valued Sumeragi's life at 10 billion yen, which stunned Manyuta, who said that she was the vice president and had no authority. So the mask was removed. Behind it was the face of the president, the one with the highest authority. Faced with this situation, to avoid losing, and to live up to his father's expectations, Manyuta decided to bet his entire life as well. His value was quite difficult to quantify. However, the president valued him at 10 billion at the current moment, because he had the potential to become the deputy secretary of the Ministry of Finance in the future. Since there was no more property he could bet, Manyuta was given the right to choose. He chose stronger with confidence that he would win. But the truth was, he didn't. Jobami had 3 cards and won the final victory. Manyuta lost simply because he underestimated Su. So the lesson learned is never to underestimate others. After the loss, Manyuta was so shocked that his hair turned white, and had to be taken to the intensive care unit. After Yuta's turn, Jobami's opponent will be the president. Before that, Sahotom and Sumedaji sought out Jobami to discuss a strategy with her. But Jobami refused, because that wasn't her gambling spirit. After the morale-boosting step for Jobami, Sahotom and Sumedaji went together to the president. Jobami said that from the first time she stepped in here. She had already dreamed of this match. The betting conditions are that the loser will never be allowed to return here. For the president and Jobami, gambling is their way of life. So not being able to live in this environment for them is probably the most cruel thing. They will use tarot cards to play a game called Tarot of Fate. They will use 20 cards and play 3 rounds. In each round, only one person can choose and flip a card. Each card is numbered 1 to 21. That will be the score they get. If the card is upright, the score is positive. If reversed, the score is negative. Jobami wins if the card value is positive. Conversely, the president wins if the card value is negative. However, there is a full card with a value of 0. If this upright card is drawn, it's an automatic win. Tarot cards can tell fortunes, and they decided to use them to decide their own fate. 3 cards will represent the present, future, and past, respectively. Jobami will open the present card, the president will open the past card, and Suzui will open the future card. Round 1 begins. Jobami reveals a card with a positive 1 point. The president, standing opposite, reveals a card with negative 21 points. It's Suzui's turn, while Sayotome and Sumedaji thought of the Fool card. The card with the blue stain left by the president. Suzui didn't think that was the way to win. His gambling isn't like that. MT Kichun Lako, DSU Shenko. So, Suzui accepted the risk left by the president. After some thought, Suzui chose another card, Tada. It's indeed 20 points. So the final result is a draw. No one has to leave. Sayotome and Suzui wanted to verify if that blue-marked card was a joker or not. But Yomizuki took it away because secrets need to be buried. Since Jabami came to the gambling academy, many changes have occurred. Some house pets have become human again. Some have settled old scores. Some lost big, while others found new prey. Although many things changed, Jabami did not. She continued to gamble wildly but was not satisfied. Because simply, Jabami is a true gambling addict. Jabami's journey. At this gambling academy, where will it go next? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Anime Rewind to find out in the summary video for Season 2, coming next. And now, goodbye, and see you in the next videos.